printed text for today. I'm going to have to preach this message in a series because once I started writing, I just kept writing. So I stopped and said, I'll just have to chop this up into a series. Mark 9:17 through 20, one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And whithersoever he taketh him, he teareth him. And he foameth and gnasheth his teeth and pineth away. And I spake to the disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. He answered him and said, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him. And when he saw him, straightway the spirit tear him. He fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming. I'm just going to read those 3 verses for now, actually 4 verses, verse 17, 18, 19, and 20. And this will not be a preachy kind of message. There are times when I feel more led to just kind of stand flat-footed and say what I see and sense and hear God saying as relates to a passage. So I want you to take notes. This message will help you. Some of you has helped more directly than others. But all of us know people that it could help. So I want the CD ministry, our media ministry, to make sure that we have copies of the CD available for those of you who desire to take one home with you, because again, it will be helpful. I want to take this particular passage, Mark 9:17 through 20, and I want to talk about evangelism and discipleship in the 21st century. Evangelism and discipleship in the 21st century, because there are components of this particular story. While you may not see it, there are components of it that relates both to evangelism and discipleship. And we will see that as we progress through the message. So during the month of May, we will be focusing on the pillar of evangelism and discipleship. That is our focus all of this month, rebuilding, strengthening that particular pillar of the church. And for the sake of our understanding, let me just go ahead and distinguish the two. What is evangelism and what is discipleship? Evangelism is, of course, bringing the lost to Christ for the first time. Discipleship is training the now convert how to live the life of Christianity. So once a person has been evangelized, brought into the body of Christ, we now train, disciple them as to how we live this life of Christianity. Both evangelism and discipleship are important and necessary to the life of the church. Winning new souls and developing those won is essential. We have, for the most part, abandoned both evangelism and discipleship. They used to have discipleship classes, and people would go to learn what do they do in order to live this Christian life. Used to have evangelism classes where people, if they didn't know nothing else, they had to know the Roman road for salvation. They would have to be able to lead people to Christ. Today I want to visit this story of the demon-possessed boy being brought to Jesus. And we'll see components again of both evangelism and discipleship nestled in this story. There are some concerns that the text present, and then there are some solutions that the text will present. I want to lift 3 of those concerns, and then I want to also present 3 solutions. Naturally, I won't be able to do all of that in one message, but the more I read the text, the more I saw certain things. And so I will present at least one of the problems in the text. Let me just go ahead and tell you the 3 problems that have already jumped out at me in this particular text. There's a problem of the silence barrier. The problem of the silence barrier. Then there's a problem of a wasting life. Problem of a wasting life. Then there's a problem of a powerless church. Again, those 3 problems just kind of jumps out at me as I read the text. The problem of a silence barrier, the problem of a wasting life, and then the problem of a powerless church. And then the 3 solutions are an interested father. This father is interested in his son and his son's dilemma, his son's problem. So an interested father is a solution to these problems that we have aforementioned. And then there is a participating church, because you'll see that when the boy finally gets to Jesus, it's not just the daddy who takes him. The Bible says they brought him to Jesus. So that's part of the solutions, and we'll talk about that, how the church has to become a participant to help families get their loved ones to Christ. And that will be the second solution. And then the third solution is an evangelistic instruction, because Jesus says plainly, bring the boy to me. He knows the problems that are associated with this family and this boy particularly, but Jesus says, he gives an evangelistic instruction, bring the boy to me. And now while Jesus gives that instructions on that particular day, it is an instruction that ought to apply today. That's why I've titled this message, Evangelism and Discipleship in the 21st Century, because what we see happening in this text still applies in today's society. The problem will show us the need for both evangelism and discipleship. So in this text, there is a father who has a son. This son has some problems, and the text diagnoses his problems as demon possession. The symptoms of his condition are he loses his ability to talk. King James says he has a dumb spirit. He loses his ability to talk. And then it goes on to say he's thrown to the ground and foams at the mouth. He gnashes at the teeth, and he pines away, or pineth away. That's what the King James says. He pineth away. And we will talk about that as we deal with the problems and see what that word pineth means. This man takes the boy to the disciples. The disciples could not do anything with the boy, which will be one of the things that we've discussed as we talk about the powerless church. The man brings the boy to the church, and the church couldn't do anything because the church was powerless. We have to deal with that because we're in a society now, in a time now, where the church has become powerless, and we got to deal with that. And what makes us powerless? And we will discuss those reasons why churches become powerless, because we focus on the wrong kinds of stuff. And Jesus says that these will come out by fasting and prayer. And if we don't want to fast and pray, well, that's a sermon later. But if you don't want to fast and pray, you don't have power. We think we have power because we get up and take a shower and come to church on Sunday. Well, you just come to church powerless. You clean, but you're powerless. That's the problem with the church today. We have a powerless congregation. We have a powerless people. We have a powerless organization because we don't devote our time to the things that gives us power. Fasting and prayer. You can have a concert any day in anybody's church and fill the house. But the Bible does not say these kind come out through singing. These kind come out through fasting and prayer. And the church goes back to the fasting and praying. We will remain powerless. So we'll deal with that as we get to that part of the sermon. So the man has come to see Jesus. He comes to see Jesus. Jesus rebukes the disciples for their lack of ability, and he orders that the boy be brought to him. So again, I've titled this message, The 21st Century Evangelism and Discipleship, because of the things that we see in the text that look so contemporary. The problems with the boy are problems of today. And the church comes alongside this daddy to help this boy. Even though he's presented as a boy, we can vacate gender and make it gender neutral if we chose to. It is a problem in anybody's house, and the church has to learn how to come alongside mamas and daddies
Amen.
and impact our society. So the first problem in this text that we see here is the silence barrier. As soon as I finish talking about this, I'll be finished. We have this boy with a serious problem, and one of the symptoms is he can't or won't talk. Like it or not, that is a major problem in our families today. There is a silence barrier between parents and children. Major problem. The silence barrier between teens and adults. More specifically, teens or youth and parents. It's not saying that they don't talk. They just don't talk to the right people. So we got to do something to combat that silence barrier. Something happens when a child gets around 13. And it stays with that child until they get around 20 and sometimes even 25. They stop talking to parents. I call it the silence barrier. When they were adolescents, you couldn't shut them up. As soon as they hit 13, it's like a clock. Right around 13. And you wonder if those headphones are part of their clothing. Because many of them, when they get up in the morning, before they put on their clothes or take a shower, they stick those headphones in their ear. And you have to wonder, is that a part of your attire? And we have dismissed this silence barrier as merely a part of growing up. And we've accepted it as they're just growing up. But its consequences are far too deadly for us to continue to ignore. There's a problem when children won't talk. The silence barrier at home leads a child to seek opinions and advice from peers and others who are not qualified to give it. When a child goes to another peer child to get advice about their life from a child that's going through the same thing that they are going through, that child does not have the qualifications nor the correct information to give advice to another child. But they're going to go somewhere to try to get advice, and they end up going to their peers. But how can parents break this silence barrier? How can we? Because this, even though the Bible presents this boy as being demon possessed, and it's interesting that this demon had caused the boy to stop talking. Say what we will or may, there's a devil that tries to keep our children from talking. Because the devil knows if I can get them to stop talking to their mamas and daddies, they'll stop giving good advice. Now listen, you can't really advise your child about relationships when you got all these uncles coming in the house. Okay. You can't really advise your child on relationships when every time they look around, they got a new uncle staying in the house.
Amen.
Okay, I just started that tape sale. How can parents break this silence barrier? First thing we have to do, we have to stop expecting or even wishing that our children